Good morning, Mr. Chairman. It is 7:30, and you do have a quorum. Good morning, Mr. Parker. All right, can everybody hear me?
Yes, Paulus.
I can hear you.
Great.
Hear you, Paulus.
Hey, Mr. Stice, how you doing, man?
I don't see a little microphone symbol by his name.
I do. It
Okay.
says it's hot, so I'm assuming he's doing some technological challenges.
Can you guys hear me?
Yes, sir.
You can hear me now?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Something to do with my phone. I'm joined via the WebEx link in the computer, but having to do audio through my phone. So, apologies for that. So go ahead and get started with the agenda this morning. And we'll start that with the approval of the April 16th meeting summary. So do I have a motion to approve?
Motion to approve, Michael Cataldo.
Thank you, Michael. I have a second.
Second, Martin Wheeler.
Thank you, Mr. Wheeler. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
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 If you're talking, Mr. Parker, we cannot hear you.
Mr. Parker, can you hear us?
Good morning. I'm not sure if that was for me. This is Ms. Dunlap Thompson.
Good morning, Ms. Dunlap Thompson. I was asking Mr. Parker if he could. I know Mr. Parker's having some technology concerns this morning, so I was seeing if he could hear us.
Yeah. Hey, can you guys hear me? Sorry, I apologize for this. I am back.
Yes, Mr. Parker, we can hear you. Can you hear us? Okay.
Yes, I can hear you now.
All right.
Great.
Please forgive for this snafu. So the last thing I heard was I had a second, and then I didn't hear anything after that. So did we vote in favor of approval?
Yes, sir.
Okay. All right, then that will take us to the next portion of the meeting, and I'll go ahead and hand it over to Mr. Howell for the review of the MTC revised financial policies.
Thank you, Mr. Parker. Good morning to all. Probably when everyone received a 78-page packet Friday afternoon, probably some things were at least thrown at your email devices. But worry not. We're not going to end this today. The purpose of today is to talk about, kind of refresh everyone's memory about what our financial policies, MTC 01, is for. Its purpose, the fact that we routinely update it, and then kind of walk through section by section. As you can see from the presentation, we'll kind of walk through section by section, discussing at a very high level the changes that a committee has worked on for the past several months to prepare this. And so the intent is we would bring this to CTAG today in May. We'll come back in June for a quick re-review of it, and then in June and answer any questions. Of course, we're more than happy to answer any questions today as well that you may have. Then in June would be to do a quick re-review, refresh on it, and then we would be looking for a recommendation to move this forward to the MTC. And then we would follow a similar process with them, where we would take it then to them in July as an informational item, with the thought that in August we would come back, or at the next available meeting if they choose to adjust their summer schedule, at the next available meeting then, and have them act on it. And so we'll walk through it today, but we really have today through the next meeting, which I think is scheduled for June 18th, to really go through it, really seek your feedback, really seek your input, and then really address it, make a recommendation on June 18th. So with that said, I'm going to go off camera so I can present in a little bit easier fashion. If you have questions, Mr. Ford, if you could, it's very hard for me in presentation mode to see if anyone has any questions. Happy to pause and take questions as we go, or happy to take them at the end, whatever works best for each of you. And so I'm going to go off camera now and switch over to presentation mode, and we'll walk through the presentation. Okay, can everyone see full screen?
Yes, sir.
Okay, all right. Now, you know, we've been doing this now since when, like 2020, and you still need to make sure the technology is working. It's just, I think that's just the way that it's going to be forever. Okay, so again, good morning. We'll start just briefly with kind of walking through and talking about what our financial policies do. It's going. So just as a reminder, in support of today's agenda, I put together, and Mr. Ford provided 4 documents. There was the presentation, there was the adopted financial policy, so as they exist today. There was a marked up version with all of different folks' feedback in it, and then there was that version as a clean version, just so everyone could see, you know, how it would look and flow. Were all of the were we to accept and move forward as is? I know with me, that always helps me then go back through it and make sure that it reads and flows the way that it's supposed to. So I wanted to provide those 3 options to everyone as well. So on October 25th, 2000, the MTC adopted CAT's original financial policies. Since that time, there have been several amendments to the financial policies. Some of the major ones, I believe, were in 2010, 2013, and the most recent amendment, which is the one we have now, was November 11th of 2016. And the financial policies provide guidance and a framework for management of the financial resources of the Charlotte area transit system. And so it really supports a lot of the information that's also a lot of the guidance that's in the interlocal agreement, but it also bridges the gap over with then city financial policies and making sure that we're consistent with city policies, state financial guidance, that we can, have a clean ACFR, which is this annual certified financial report that the city produces. And so it really bridges the gap of everything between the interlocal agreement, MTC guidance, and then city and state guidance. It is on a 3-year review cycle, so we are a couple of years behind here. And so that was part of the impetus in getting this updated. As a general rule, CATS has a very strong and robust policy review group through our records management folks managed through development. And so this was something that they had called to our attention that we needed to revisit this policy. And so that, and for other reasons you'll see as we walk through it, it was time to bring it before this group and seek an update, seek advice, seek feedback, and move forward with an update to the MTC. A couple other items: any MTC member or Mr. Cagle as interim CEO can propose amendments or revisions. And CTAG's role in this is to review the study, proposed amendments or revisions, and then make any recommendations ultimately to the MTC for their consideration and eventual adoption. Before I kind of go through the revisions, just touch briefly. We've been working on this now for about 8 months. That sounds like a long time, and it has been. Some of that was timing. We wanted to also focus on getting our budget out. I know the CTAG has helped us exclusively or extensively with that in the past few months, and so we wanted to focus on that. So that did delay bringing this forward by a few months, but we're ready to bring it now. The review committee consisted of CATS Finance, Development, and CATS Legal, and as well as City Finance, Treasury, and Reporting. And so it was a number of folks that were involved, CATS-wide, citywide, to make these recommendations that we're talking about today. Broadly, it's split into 2 different types of adjustments: administrative, grammar, everything from just word choice to punctuation, clarifying technical and procedural changes. So as we walk through this, and I won't touch on every one, you'll see that as CATS staff and city staff have operationalized the policy that's been in place since 2016, be it just through normal usage or reference to the policy, or how it was actually implemented within our financial system, just some of the terminology, some of the things that the way we titled and called certain things within the policy just are not in keeping with the way they're actually called. And I know me coming in about 18 months ago, I almost had to have a cheat sheet on some of these to make sure that when I was speaking about one thing, that everybody understood what it was. And so this was a chance to update some of the policy language, clarify definitions. Policy-wise, there are 4 areas here that we just wanted to clarify, and we'll see these each as we go through it. But broadly, it was to just redefine our revenue reserve fund, not making any change there, just changing the language to be what we're actually doing. Redefine unrestricted fund balance. Again, no change there. Still going to be greater to or equal to or greater than 100 million at the end of every year. Just clarified a few things there. Redefined a capital expenditure. This is very technical change, but it just makes us consistent with the city. And added that the MTC can review and approve extension-related capital costs outside of Mecklenburg County. There was language in there, you'll see it toward the end, where it just wasn't clear how we needed to, what permission we needed to seek if we were going to provide service outside of the county, and under what circumstances. And so we worked with our legal folks to better define that language. So I'll just kind of walk through each section now. If you are following along, I had to think about how best to do this. So if you start on PDF page 25, I know the policies are numbered themselves, but if you go with the complete packet and kind of start on PDF page 25, as we walk through, you'll see the changes in detail. I'm going to try and follow through as well. Again, won't touch on them each one, but you'll see when I define a few of these, kind of what the changes actually were. So policy-wide, again, grammar and some technical and procedural changes. Then in section 1, which is actually PDF page 25, it was technical revisions. You'll see a few of those along. We had our legal folks look to make sure we were still referencing the correct, be it local statutes, state statutes, or local ordinances, state statutes, federal requirements, and a few of those were updated and changed. And then throughout the document, this was something that I wanted to look at. We mentioned the term income, and I'm more used to dealing with policies like this referencing revenues. And so not in every single case, but in all cases where we were really talking about revenues, we just changed income to revenues. And you'll see that throughout. Section 2 is our definition section. So we added a few definitions. There were terms that were used throughout the policy that didn't really have a kind of a reference back. So when we say, for example, local match, what do we really mean? And so we added that in here and defined that so that when you see that later in the policy, you'll see what it means. Transit capital fund, debt service fund, and operating fund, we added those just to make sure that there was a clear understanding of what they meant. And we also revised a couple of definitions. Transit revenue reserve fund was one, and transit sales tax consolidation fund. Again, made sure that they were defined appropriately, but did not change the way they were used within policy. So they don't mean something different today than they did. The language is just more consistent with the way we were actually using it. Section 3, it was what's called flow of funds, and I changed the technical, or the committee we discussed changing it to allocation of funds. So what section 3 talks about is the way money comes into CATS and then is distributed amongst our funds, which is unique to CATS in that the sales tax comes into a separate fund and then is moved based on our budget to operating, and it's moved monthly either to operating or to our reserve fund. And so what section 3 does is talk about how that is done and why it is done. And it's done as a hedge to ensure that because there's a 3-month delay with our sales tax coming in, it's done to make sure that we're keeping track of that as we go and don't become overly dependent on it, and can really track back any fluctuations that may exist from local economic conditions. And so it's really just truing up the way the language is used within that section, the way staff really refers to these items. Section 4 talks about our debt service program. We revised the wording again, primarily here to consistent with our standard operating procedures. As we work with city finance, is how we refer to things. And so we just incorporated that language in here. For example, we don't say transit debt service fund. In this case, it's really the sales tax consolidation. And that's just how the normal way that we refer to it is. Technical change added when this policy was adopted in 2016. We didn't have the streetcars fully in use or in use, and so now they are. And so now we've added that, incorporated that language in here. Section 5, again, moving forward, it's a few pages over from where we were. It just discusses the transit operating fund. There was a lot of language here that was just, it went beyond explaining and just was redundant. And so we removed that. You'll see that under the purpose section. Revised language to provide the CEO with the authority to extend the maintenance of effort pay date. So the maintenance of effort, we talked about this, I know when we talked about our budget, the maintenance of effort. So for the 3 local governments that had transit in place prior to the adoption of the Article 43 sales tax, which was City of Charlotte, Mecklenburg County, and Huntersville, they continue to provide support. The revenue was in their sales tax was intended to supplement, not supplant. And so those 3 local governments still provide support to CATS. The city has increased their support over the years. Mecklenburg County and Huntersville maintained it at the rate that they did prior to sales tax adoption, which is consistent with the statute that the city has chose to increase it. But what it said was basically all of that must be paid by December 31st. I know particularly with Huntersville, we are with Mecklenburg County, in some cases, the way we exchange funds back and forth with them, it was later than December 31st, sometimes before we would get our final payment. And so this is just a cleanup of that language, just to make sure that it's clear that you can request that it be by June 30 of the same fiscal year. In 5 dot that, so section 5 also deals with our performance measures. We looked at this extensively. I know I talked with Treasury and other folks in city finance about some of these to gauge their feedback on whether they thought they, were appropriate, because one of the things our financial performance measures do is not just, we don't just use them internally to measure our performance. They would also be used by rating agencies and other outside entities, once we go back to the market for debt issuance. And so they look at, are you tracking, do you have performance measures? Are you meeting them, where possible? And are they relevant? And so worked with finance. Also, we discussed this internally with our performance measures. And what we came away with was the ones as listed were still good and relevant industry standard type stuff. You could think of it that way. But we feel we did need to add some language in case that we did need to amend them or change them on a case-by-case basis. And so we did add this note here. You'll see it added at the bottom. I think it's the bottom of the page under 5.6.d. It's the last one. It just says the above financial performance objectives are established as policy objectives for the MTC and CATS management to strive to achieve in managing the affairs of the transit system, and may be temporarily suspended, temporarily modified, or amended upon management review. So we will keep them. We will still strive to meet them every year. But if for some reason we cannot meet them, and there could be operational reasons why we could not meet them, based on the tempo of our work that year, based on the way we may have had some, for example, the way we've had to put some money into maintenance. A lot of that maintenance has fallen on the operating side, and could have thrown some of our ratios out of balance, but we had to spend that money. That's a good example of why we wanted to give ourselves the ability to suspend them if we needed to. 6 it defines our operating program. It just talks, so it's covering the operating side of our budget. Revised. So a while back, we brought forward. It was not too long after I came to CATS. We brought forward and updated our fare policy, but the language within this policy had not been updated to be consistent with the new MTCO2. So in section 6.3, we just adjusted it to align with that already amended policy. Y'all may have noticed that there was a difference. We've stopped a few years ago saying certified annual financial report and now call it the annual comprehensive financial report. That was a change from the national agency. I can't think of the acronym right now, it's left me, but the national agency that governs all things financial awards, CATS awards, the City of Charlotte, our annual financial report, our financial awards, GASB, GFOA, government finance officers. And so they changed it. So this is just a technical change to update to that. We referenced that in here. This section 7 defines the revenue reserve fund. And again, in 2016, the revenue reserve fund was really created. And the intent at the time was to put money there until we had a minimum of $30 million or a maximum, it was a maximum of 30 million. So we would build it until it hit 30, and then the money above that would be moved somewhere else and used for other purposes. In reality, what we've done is, as we've advanced past 30 million, this has really become and functions as the city's reserve fund. CATS's reserve fund. We moved money from here to fund capital, for example, capital items. And so we just changed the word maximum to minimum. And so we would not go below the minimum of 30 million here, but we are today and have been for some time above 30. So it's, again, operationalizing, making sure the language is operationalized the way we actually use it. And we discussed this extensively with City Finance, and they're good with this one. Transit Capital Program, again, updating language, clarified some language, revised the definition. The big thing here is revise the definition of capital expenditure from an acquisition cost purchase price greater than or equal to $5,000 to greater than or equal to the amount specified in the City of Charlotte's capitalization policy. And so that just keeps us consistent. As if that policy were to adjust, then we would automatically adjust with that policy, as opposed to having a separate amount listed in hours that may require us to unintentionally or inadvertently do something different than the city's normal standard to be in compliance with this policy, when we could just adjust to the city standard. Section 8 was, again, also under the Transit Capital Program. We talk about our fund balance. Basically, right now, the unrestricted fund balance it will be greater than 100 million, or the amount calculated is a sum equivalent to the following: debt service expense, up to 6 months of annual operating and maintenance expense, or annual operating balance. In reality, predating the amendment in this 2016 amendment, going back to when I was here before in 2011, 2012, we've always pushed to keep it at a minimum of 100 million. And so we're just adjusting this to say the unrestricted fund balance requirement at the end of the fiscal year shall be greater than or equal to 100 million. As our budget increases and we have the ability to have more than 100 million here, we would look to do that. But this just solidifies that it will be greater than or equal to that 100 million. So when you combine this part, and I think we talked about this in pieces, but just if you look at this section 86, 8.6, sorry, and then go back to where we talked about here in section 7. So what this really means is that we are, unless something would happen and the CEO would request it, which they can do, there's a process in here where they can do it, we would always have on hand a minimum of 130 million. 100 million on the operating side, and then 30 million here in the revenue reserve fund. And so the intent moving forward is that that is the base, the floor of our reserves that we would always maintain on hand. And we have well in advance of that right now. And the intent is to keep that as, close to 130 million, or at or greater than 130 million as we move forward. Wrapping up here, I know been a lot. We've covered a lot very quickly, which is why I wanted to give everyone, a chance to also come back and look at it before next meeting. Section 9, just added a couple of clarifying statements here when it dealt with outside Mecklenburg County service improvements that we typically do not pay for those, but it gives us the ability as staff to bring that up to the MTC and ask them for their guidance, and then if approved, we can then do that. This was some language that we did discuss with our legal folks, and they felt this was sufficient to provide us with the ability to do it, if we needed to. And then wrapping up, section 10 made a couple of changes. For example, this was referred to as a Citizens Transit Advisory Committee, not group. So we made that adjustment. And that concludes the summary of our review. Again, next steps here would be, and we've adjusted this a little bit, would be next month we'll come back and seek approval, discuss it again, seek approval from CTAG to advance this to the MTC. Then now in July, then we would take it as an informational item to the MTC. And in August, then would be an action item. And the policy would go into effect maybe September 1st, for example. But those are the next steps. Mr. Chairman, that concludes my presentation. I'm going to close sharing now, and I'm happy to answer any questions from the committee.
Thank you, Chad. Does anyone have any questions at the moment?
This is Todd. Can you hear me?
Hey, Todd, go ahead.
Yes, sir, Mr. Stice.
Yeah, when I represented the town of Huntersville, I always knew that they provided some kind of contribution to CATS each year. I see it's called out in the policy. It seems like that was established pretty far back, like 1998, 97. Is it a significant amount of money that they contribute, and is there a reason why they haven't tried to revise that to get other towns like Cornelius and Davison to also contribute and get into that?
I'll tell you what I know, but you raise a good question. So the reason that I know Huntersville, Mecklenburg County, and the city still contribute, and I see Mr. Cagle is on. I know he and I've chatted about this as well. Is it's to be consistent with the statutory language of that the sales tax was to supplement, not supplant. And so for the three entities that contributed, they still contribute. And we've identified that as maintenance of effort.
Yeah.
And
Can you all
so,
hear me?
Yeah, yes, Mr. Cagle.
Yeah, Mr. Stice, it's fair to say that the reason this exists is because of statutory. It's in the Article 43 statute, and so it's forever locked in time, right? When Article 43 was passed, Huntersville, Mecklenburg County, and the city of Charlotte provided some amount of transit services, and so it basically forever locked in time that they have to contribute maintenance of effort. And so no other cities will be added to that. And as long as Article 43 exists, the three entities that currently pay it cannot stop paying it. It's just, it goes back to, as Chad said, Article 43 states that the new revenues at the time were there to supplement, not supplant, existing transit services. So basically, because of state statute, those three, the two towns and the county, are forever locked in paying what we call maintenance of effort, or MOE. But that's why no one else pays it, because they were not providing transit services before Article 43.
Yeah, do you get a lot of pushback from Huntersville over the years for
No,
having that?
no, we really don't. And Huntersville's contribution is the smallest of the three, and 99% of this revenue comes from Charlotte. I think Charlotte's is somewhere around $25 million a year. The county is somewhere around 180 to 220,000. I don't remember exactly. It's somewhere in the 200,000 range, and Huntersville is down in the 30,000 range. It's a very de minimis amount for Huntersville. What it really is, I mean, look, I'll just speak plainly. What it really was intended to do was to prevent Charlotte from having a windfall, right? So if Article 43 had passed, when it passed, if Charlotte had just taken all of that money, however many millions it was that they were spending to provide bus service, and taken it all away, then Article 43 would have paid for that existing bus service. But the intention of the new sales tax was to create additional service. And so it was really, yes, the county and Huntersville have to pay because they did have some transit services, but it's really designed to ensure that it wasn't, Article 43 didn't become a revenue replacement, if you will, or so to speak, for Charlotte, because they were providing the bulk of the transit at the time. And so it's forever, as long as there's Article 43 revenues, there will be MOE, because that's actually encoded in state statute.
Yeah, that 30,000 sounds from something I recall from looking at their budget several years ago, and it didn't seem like a significant amount, but I wasn't aware that they were the only ones that were plotting that. But I think that what you provided explains it to me. Thank you.
Are there any other questions? All right, hearing none, go ahead and thank you, Chad, for that report, and we will, I guess, come back to it, revisit it in the next meeting, and take a vote on it then. But that brings us up to our last agenda item, which is other business. Does anyone have any other business that they need to bring to the floor at this time?
So good morning, everyone. How are you all? I just wanted to say thank you to CEO Cagle and Katz for the accommodations during the CSI ride. It was very successful. We are hosting a town hall meeting on August the 3rd, if you would. Notate your calendars for that. But I just want to say thank you to Cats and CEO Cagle. Everything was amazing. I truly, truly, truly am honored to be a part of such an awesome city and a part of this group. And I look forward to us strategizing how we can continue to combine these conversations with the community and the company. So I yield the floor.
Thank you. Anyone else?
Chairman Parker, I have one thing, but I can wait until everyone else has had a chance to speak.
Sure thing. Anyone else before Mr. Howell speaks? I don't think we have anyone else, so you can go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just a quick reminder, on May 8th and then also on May 16th, Ms. Coonsey had sent a email out and then sent an email out on the 8th and a reminder on the 16th about a survey. And this is to seek feedback from both CTAG and TSAC members about the potential of combining the two groups. We wanted to seek your feedback, and so I just wanted to remind everyone that there is a survey out there for it. The emails had a link to it, so we would much appreciate your feedback on that as we, look into combining the two subcommittees into one subcommittee that covers both of the areas of responsibility of the two. And that's all I have, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you for bringing that up. That was something that I was wanting to bring up, but had forgotten about it. So thank you for reminding me. All righty. Last. Any other business before we adjourn?
Yes, sir, Mr. Chair. If I could, for attendance purposes, asked if this is Mr. Robert Hillman on the call. Mr. Jonathan Wells. Miss Annie Davis. Okay, I didn't hear none. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Okay, thank you, sir. Well, with that, I will bring up the last agenda item, which is adjournment. Do I have a motion to adjourn?
Yes, Michael Cataldo, motion to adjourn.
Thank you, Michael. Thank you, Ms. Dunlap Thompson. With the second, all those in favor say aye.
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 Anyone opposed, please say no. All right, it looks like the ayes have it. So have a good week and a good month, everyone, and we will talk to you next month. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye, everyone. Have a great day and week.